Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Dream Life Loading podcast. I'm Skye.
And I'm Susan. How are you doing today, Sky?
I'm good. I know you just said it's a rainy day for you too, so I think it's funny that we're 4,000 miles apart and having very similar weather, but it's been an interesting start to the Monday just because, I don't know, we're like cozy and no one, I don't know, at least for me, I don't feel super motivated when it's raining out. So it's been like a calm start to the week. How are you?
Yeah, same thing. It's dreary here and it's pretty cold. Well, I say cold. It was 90 last week. So now that it's like 45, 50, like it feels very cold.
That's a
So
dramatic difference in 1 week.
it really is. So I'm bundled up. I have my sweater on, my jeans. I have my heating pad too. Like we're good. All right. Speaking of comfort, why don't we just jump right into this? And we're talking about body image today.
I think the way I took this episode was like insecurity as a whole, and I feel like there's so many different ways we can go about this, and I think we've talked about self-love and body positivity and so many different topics along the lines of body image and insecurities for 24 episodes or however many we're on at this point. So I think it was only fitting that we finally just dove in and dedicated an entire episode to body image and facing your insecurities.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember the first time you were like aware of yourself, like of body image or like what other people might think of you?
I do. And it's like a memory that still triggers my now 23-year-old brain, but it was kindergarten. And oh my God, this is a topic that I like do not talk about. There's many friends and family members in my life that like don't know this about me, but I have really, really sweaty hands and sweaty feet. And it's actually a condition that like the doctors told me you can't solve it. Like you can get like Botox, I think, like into your hands and feet, which obviously as a child, my parents were like, we're not doing that. So I remember in kindergarten, obviously I didn't know that I was any different. I didn't know that like not everyone
Right.
had really, because you're a kid, you don't compare yourself at that age. And the teacher had us line up and she was like, okay, like grab your partner's hand. And this little girl goes, I don't want to hold Skylar's hand. She has sweaty hands. And oh, like you can imagine, what was I, 3 or 4? Like that, like it, I never have forgotten that moment. And like since that day, like that changed so much in my life. So yes, that was the moment for me that it was like, I'm aware of everything I do now and like how these things that make me unique are going to impact like day-to-day life. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I actually there's kind of two that go into this, but same age group. I was like 3, 4. My hair was always a topic of conversation because it's darker now, but I used to have fire truck red hair. So I remember even like my preschool teachers being like, "Oh, Susan's red hair," and they would want to like brush it, and like it was like just kind of like a little weird, but there was always attention revolving around my hair. And no one there was maybe another kid. Yeah, there was like another ginger, so like I knew I wasn't like a rare species. However, I was very much aware of my hair and I wanted to have blonde hair for all the way up until probably my 20s because I just felt like out of place, like I didn't feel like I fit in. But the first time I was aware of like my body was a family member, which I know that they meant no ill intent, but like looking back at it now, it's like, what the fuck were you thinking when you said this to me? So it was me and someone else, and we both gave this person a hug, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know who hugs tighter." And then they pause and goes, "But I know who's skinnier." And I like kind of perked up, and I was like, "Well, okay," because I thought like I'm little, like I was a little kid. And then they said the other person's name, and that was the first time that I was like, oh, like I remember like literally like a cartoon. And also this is unrelated but kind of related. I remember my memories as third person, so like I can see myself as they happen. So I
Interesting.
can literally feel like my shoulders slumping over and just feeling bad about it. And that was the first time that I was conscious of my body.
I can't believe someone said that to you as a little like imagine being told that now versus like as a child too. Like the impression that words have on I mean
Hmm.
this is a great topic with like insecurities as a whole, like but like think about both of my scenario and your scenario. It wasn't how we felt in our bodies, it was the way other people talked about us and like put
Yep.
words out there about us that left such a negative impression on us from like for 20 years,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah. And it's like now, like if someone wants to comment on my body now, like please, please come at me because I will either sucker punch you or I will have something to say back because it's absolutely not appropriate. Like your body is not a topic of conversation. No matter how good it looks because what defines good? What like criteria are we using to make that comment at anyone? Or if you're not looking your best, also, who's to say that you're allowed anyone to comment on that?
I'm trying to think of the moment. I feel like it was like gym class and like situations like that when like if it was when I don't know, I'm thinking of like so many different situations in school and in like growing up in that age, like elementary, middle school was where it was like it became like very clear like if you look this way or you look this way, like, people are going to comment on it and it just I think it like I had like cuz if you have friends that don't look like you do, which is a great thing, honestly, you should have friends that look different than you. And now,
Yes.
like, other people are comparing you. Like, I remember so many situations where other people would compare a friend and me to each other or about each other. And then the friend and I would compare ourselves to each other because how could you not? And it's even hard now, like, even in college or post grad, it's still difficult. But imagine like a 12-year-old that's now been told one thing and then compared to
Yeah.
someone else that they enjoy being around. And it's like, how do you look at that person and not now see that comparison that someone's brought up about you? It's so difficult to not
Yeah.
let the words like at least have an impact on you, whether you choose to believe them or not. Like you're still hearing these words about yourself.
Yeah. I was 13 when I started the ski team. And ski team was I don't want to start fights here, but arguably we trained the hardest out of all of the sports teams because we would run like we had an alternating schedule. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if we weren't on the slopes, we were running like upwards of 5 miles at night in the dark up hills. And then if we weren't doing that, Tuesday, Thursdays were weight training days. So I was 13 years old in the weight room and we didn't have a middle school team. I was on the varsity team because we didn't have enough like met like kids. So I'm training with 17-year-old boys in the weight room. So like I didn't want to look like a chump. I remember that's my whole life. I've been like I'm one of the boys at least when it comes to like strength training. Like I want to lift heavy.
Mhm.
So
You don't
I
want to be
remember
treated like you're weak. And I think there's such a stereotype of women being weaker than men
yeah.
and like physically, mentally, whatever. But I think you've like as far as I've known you and clearly even beyond that, you've always like openly denied that stigma.
Yes. So 13, it was the winter that I turned 13. So actually I was 12 at the beginning of the season and then 13. And like your body's changing so much at that age anyways. But I put on like mad muscle on my legs. I was 12 or 13 and I was leg pressing. I was so excited when I hit triple digits on the leg press.
That's a
And it
really
was
big
like I
deal.
was impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then with that, you grow muscle, your body gets bigger. So like I had thighs and an ass. And a lot of my other friends at the time, like they either hadn't developed there or whatever. And I remember being so self-conscious of my legs because everyone had like these skinny little legs, and I was like, oh, like I don't look like that. And since then, I have still not looked like that. Like I still hit my legs pretty hard, so they're full. But that was another thing that growing up specifically, I was super insecure about.
That is the funniest thing to me because I had the exact opposite
Oh,
experience, right? Which I think we've kind of talked about a little bit. I'll shorten the story, but my parents were so good about not talking about your body in a negative way. I've seen too many parents of friends or like acquaintances throughout the years. I feel like middle school especially, you're going to so many different play dates and whatever. Like you see so many different
yeah,
family environments and I was always shocked by the way some parents talked about their own bodies around their kids and it's like your kid's going to pick up on that or talking about their own child's bodies whatever, but my parents never said anything, which I'm so grateful for, but I remember I was a dancer from like age 2 through 18, and I was stereotyped, like, or not stereotyped, like I was categorized as like the girl, like the like, oh, Skylar has like little, like she has skinny little legs, put her in the back because she's tall. And I mean, every single dance I was ever in, I was stuck in the back because, and they kept telling me like, oh, we wish we had your legs, like you have skinny little legs. And then like they'd say things like, oh, you have such tiny ankles and things like that. And it was like, but then I sat there and I was like, oh, well, I feel bad that I'm always put in the back and I'm always the one that's called out. And so it was like you as a child wanted what I was trying to get rid of, you know? And it's like, I wish I could put on the muscle to have legs that looked like these strong dancers. In my opinion, it was like, that's what I want to look like the strong calves. And it was like, that was so attractive to me as a little kid. And it was like, I just couldn't do it. Like I don't know, I was a really scrawny little kid, and that's okay. And it's okay that you had muscle, you know? It's like, but it wasn't okay in our minds. It was like, we have to look like what we think is the right way to look. And it's based on what people around you are saying.
Yeah. And beyond that, I think the other key factor here is social media. Like at the time that you're most aware of your body, like going through puberty, was when we were exposed to social media and we grew up with it.
Mhm.
And I think there's been so many phases of social media and the way that I use it. But starting out, I remember just comparing myself to everyone. And then the people that I was looking at that I wanted to look like on Pinterest or whatever were not healthy people. Like you have organs for a reason. Like they have to go somewhere. And I just had this like drive to be something that I wasn't. And I honestly don't know how I got through my young adulthood and teenage years without an eating disorder or anything like that, because what I wanted to get to where I wanted would have taken very drastic and dangerous
Mhm.
measures. And I'm glad that I was never that invested, but I was looking and I did want to look a
Yeah.
certain way. And I was putting myself down because I didn't look that way.
The one I remember, like the one beauty standard I really specifically remember was um like the like not it's not like it's the bottom of your stomach, which like I remember so many the bot is that the right way
Yeah.
to say it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember so like
I think
if
it's the
you
bottom of your
picture
stomach.
it,
Yeah.
it's like the pink floral bathing suit with like the blonde girl that's way too artificially tanned, and it's like the stomach that like is concaved almost, it's so flat. And all the girls in
Yeah.
middle school and high school were like, I want to look like that, like I want like to look like that. And it was like I think it's been in the past 4 or 5 years that I learned, maybe even less than that, that every woman has like the extra, I don't even know what to call it, protection at the bottom of your stomach for like carrying a child or whatever. Like it's in our DNA that it's supposed to not be
Yeah.
flat like that. So we have this image out there that I'm sure is edited, or that girl is malnourished or whatever, that's not correct. And now everyone wants to look like that. And literally no one should look like that because our bodies are built to protect us and energize us and keep us going. Oh, it's
Yeah.
awful.
I had to, I think I was 19. It was like coming towards the end of me being at UNH. So yeah, I was 19.
Yeah.
And I had to unfollow all of the Kardashians because while I love the Kardashians, it was that I think that was around the time that they were all their bodies changed a
Yeah.
lot. Regardless of what they did or how they did it, they got very skinny.
Hmm.
And I was like, I would remember just like logging on and like I would search all of their names and I would go through and like look at all of their profiles and be like, okay, like this is what I need to look like by summer. This is it. And it's like that's so looking back at it now, it's like, oh, Susan. But like then I really felt that way.
Yeah. It's so hard. I think because we're trained that the way you look is not enough. Whether you actually feel that
Yeah.
way or not, I think it's the way social media has trained us. And like, think about like diet culture and like all these different fitness programs that are like, you can look this way if you start my program, and in 6 weeks you'll be transformed. And it's like, well, what's wrong with where you are? Which is not to say that like we both love exercising, and but there's safe and healthy ways to do it where you're not just going to the gym so that you look a certain way. And it's like you, and I mean this all goes back to self-love. If you can't love yourself the way you are now, you need to start there before you can't just change yourself. You have to find things about yourself that you do love and then things you want to improve versus like completely change who you are and not just appreciate the body you've been given.
Yep. I went through a major like health body transformation in the last year and a half. And I vlogged about it a little bit, but I don't talk about that process or my weight loss in the last year because I don't ever want to be promoting weight loss.
Hmm.
That's not the point. And I also don't want people coming at me being like, well, you didn't need to lose weight in the first place. And I was like, well, no, like I was unhealthy where I started. But I also changed my focus from I need to lose weight to what can I gain. And that's really what changed for me. And that's why what worked, like my habits have stuck because I went from focusing on losing stuff to gaining stuff. So I wanted to gain muscle, I wanted to gain strength, I wanted to gain endurance instead of I want to lose 30 pounds. And that mind shift literally changed everything. And I think since I took on that mindset, I'm not looking at what other people are doing. I'm not comparing because I'm just focused on me.
And you're focused on comparing yourself. You're comparing like how you felt
Mhm.
versus how you feel now, which I think like you
Yeah.
rarely talk about your weight loss because to you it really is more about the mind transformation of like, oh my gosh, because I'm exercising,
Yeah.
because I'm eating this way, I feel so much better. And it's always about like not like, oh my God, look at me versus that person. It's always like I feel so much better than I did last year at this time or 6 months ago. I feel so much
Mhm.
better, and it has to be such a positive mindset too. Like, what can you gain from this versus like what's wrong with you now that you have to change? Like take yourself
Right.
as you are and
Right.
gain and add to that. And if adding to that is getting more toned and like I don't know, it's okay to need to lose weight or want to lose weight if that's what's right for you. And I also think it's
Right.
so hard. I feel like too many people think they need to lose weight that don't need to. And I think that's like a whole separate issue that I don't have enough knowledge on to even try to go into. But I think that there's just too many beauty standards and standards as a whole
Mhm.
that people need to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And like you don't have to do anything that isn't right for you. Everyone's different and everyone's going to have
No.
different goals and a different standard of what healthy is for your body
Yeah.
and for you and your lifestyle.
And I honestly should do like a sit down video on like where I was to where I got to and about the changes because I think how I went about it could be life changing for someone else because
Mhm.
I had never sat down and seen a video like how I went about it. But I just net I don't want to glorify weight loss. And I think that's why I've been kind of teetering on the edge of figuring out how to do it, but to do it not constructively, that's not the right word, but just the right way and not making any other woman feel like they need to lose X amount of
Yeah.
pounds to be better because you're perfect the way you are. And it
And
just
like focus on like you like completely like this is what I did for my body and like I don't know
mm,
what's going to be good for your body and what like because
yeah,
this worked for you but someone and I think we've talked about this too is like someone could follow the exact lifestyle, exercise, eating habits that you've been doing for the past year and a half and have completely different results, which just literally proves that everyone is supposed to look different and do different things. So like trying to compare
yeah,
yourself, and like I'm sitting here preaching this, it's like I compare myself constantly. Like it's so hard not to. And I think we should share on this too is what tools we use when we catch ourselves still comparing because I think
yeah,
comparison is something that I wish we could be rid of completely, but I think it's kind of human nature. And I think a little bit of healthy comparison as in a form of like competitive being competitive, that can be
yeah,
helpful in not really with body image at all, but in certain forms comparison can be like a motivator, but it's never going to be gone. So I think just using the tools you can to combat and like use your thought correction. I wrote it down today instead of having to ask you to write it again. Is the only way that you're going to learn how to like get out of that spiral of just comparing
yeah.
yourself constantly because it's so hard. It becomes a habit.
Yeah. So actually, I will tell you my first tool, and I actually have a visual. I don't. I'm not. I'm upstairs, so I don't have the actual thing. But this picture is of me, and it lives the original print, which my sister actually, like I don't know what the process is, but actually developed herself.
Oh,
I have this picture of me looking in the mirror. I look fine as hell. But I have that taped in my mirror downstairs. So I see it, and every day when I find myself comparing or even looking in the mirror and like pulling myself apart or just being rude, I'm like, I wouldn't speak to her that way. And she's listening because even though I'm bigger now, like she exists in me, and I would never want her to hear any of the things I'm saying to myself, or I would never want her to be like, oh, I need to look like anything other than the person looking back at me.
I love
So
that.
that's my big,
I love that. I mean, thought correction is something that I always try and use. And I think it happens. Let's go back to my sweaty hands, honestly, is because it is something that impacts like literally day to day life. And I'll look at like a cute outfit with sandals, which sounds so superficial, but it happens. And I'm like, well, I can't wear sandals because it doesn't work for me. And it's like, okay, but like, what do I love about myself? And then I try and like, okay, well,
yeah,
I don't like this about me or this, and I'm really like, it's hard because it's hard to change the narrative that you've been told for literally years and years is like, you shouldn't like this because it's different. So, how can you take that? And maybe you can't find a positive in that, but you can find a positive in something else. So, it's like, I love my hair, or I love, like you can find
yeah,
a good positive to counteract the negative, which is something I work on because it's really difficult. But it does kind of switch it because it's like, then the second you start thinking about a good thing, it's way easier for your brain to just stick on that route than go back to the old one. So you just have to trick yourself.
yeah. Um, the other thing is we need to understand that food or what you're feeding yourself is not just like physical food. So for me, when I was going through a time where I was just comparing myself to everyone, I realized I was only following and seeing the content of fitness influencers and the Kardashians. And I unfollowed all of them. And then I have my three scroll rule now, which we've talked about before. But if you're not learning something, inspired by something, or laughing at something within three scrolls on any social media app, you get the fuck out of that app. That's it. You're done. And you go do something else. Or you can even go check out another app. Same
Mhm.
thing. If in three scrolls you don't find anything, move on because then you're just doom scrolling or
Yep.
aimlessly scrolling, and it's such a waste of time.
I notice it like, and I really have been using your rule, and reading's been helping me too because I find I'll turn to a book instead of just
Mm,
turning to the scrolling if I'm like into a really good book. But it's if you open, I do this, I'll open an app and it happens on the weekends because I'm worse about scrolling like on a
yeah,
Saturday morning or something. I'll open Instagram and see one photo and like you can feel your stomach drop because like something in that photo triggered whatever it was. And then instead of logging out of the app, I'll catch myself and I'm just like going and I'm looking for something. It's like your brain is looking for something to piss you off even more. It's like, why do we do that?
yeah,
Like, why do we look for ways to let ourselves down? It's like, close it
yeah,
out and like, just like, do not let your brain, like, don't give in to the addiction of like wanting to upset yourself. And it's so weird, like, even like snapping myself out of it, but it's like, why was I just doing that? Like, why was I purposely letting myself be upset by these things? Like, I don't know why our brains are like that, or like, I don't know, but it's so difficult. So the three scroll rule really is, but it's so hard in the moment too to remember that.
it, it is. And it's a matter of the more you have to learn about yourself. Like the more you learn about yourself, the more you know your own boundaries within yourself. Because we talk about boundaries all the time and like how you treat yourself sets up how other people treat you. But like until you establish how you're gonna treat yourself, like you wouldn't let someone else sit there and say the things that you're saying to yourself. So if you start hearing them, you have to stop them. And I've actually found I've kind of been trying to track it and in my head, just kind of take a mental note. I usually get through two negative thoughts before I can stop myself lately. So I challenge you just to see how many negative thoughts you're like feeling before you like are either conscious of it or shut it down because understanding that too, because like there is a sweet spot for it. Or I find we've talked about this in the car. I start having fake fights in my head, even if there's music playing. And it's very similar to that. It's like, okay, I'm aware that I'm doing it. Let's stop it. And
Yeah.
that you can apply that to social media. So even going, if you log onto your app and say, okay, I'm going to see how many times I get pissed off or compare myself before I close out the app. Like, you also have to like take in data before you can analyze and figure out what you need. So I think that could be super helpful too to anyone.
Yeah. I think it becomes a habit. Is like so it's
Yeah.
changing that habit. And we talk about habits a lot too, but like this is a terrible habit I have for sure. So if I can learn the three scroll rule and make that become a habit, then you just won't even
Yeah.
think about what you used to do. But it's funny you said that because that was literally the first, of course, I have a list. The first thing I wrote down, people will treat you the way you treat yourself. And so if you're so whichever aspect you're talking about with body image, like if you're kind to your body, people are going to follow that example, which I think like look at both of our scenarios. We were young kids and we didn't know anything about
Right.
anything. And so one person told you that your hair like is different and so you ran with it. But if you change that narrative and you're like, I love my hair, like my hair is the most unique thing
Yep.
about me and I love this aspect, then people are going to be like, love it. Like Susan's hair is the
Yep.
like Susan's hair is this great thing about her and it makes her so unique. And people rarely come up with their own opinions if you give them one first. Like
Yep.
if you introduce yourself with like you don't obviously I'm not saying to go and hi, I'm Susan and I love my red hair, but you can say little things about yourself that people are going to run with. Like I'm thinking of people like in the past that if if you put your insecurities out there, which I think there's something to be said for sharing your insecurities with people that you trust and like sharing that experience, but if you're
Yeah.
constantly like, oh, I hate the way my body looks in this skirt or I hate this and that, and it's like then it makes it harder for people to lift you up if you're putting yourself down. So if you lift yourself up, everyone around you is just going to mimic that feeling. Like people like you can lead the example. You can be the example of
Yeah.
how people treat you. So you have to treat yourself right if you want other people to treat you right, which I think is also if you're insecure, it's very easy to rely on other people's affirmations and like compliments of you. But if you're able to give yourself the positive affirmations and compliments, then people can, and it doesn't matter what other people say, but chances are they're just going to
Mhm.
follow that instead of no one's going to like purposely put you down if you're putting yourself up.
Right. And it makes it even harder for people to put you down. If you're, I mean, this is a confidence thing too, but like this is an example. My father-in-law is one of the most confident person I know. Like he it is what it is. But that's one of the best things that I've learned from him is like just like the only person you have to please is yourself.
Mhm.
And if you know that you're, you know, a million looking like $1 million that day, like let the world know because no one's gonna like you. It's exactly what you just said, but no one's gonna say, "Oh no, you don't."
Yep.
After you establish that you are, or you're feeling great, like
Yeah.
you just can't argue that you can't argue those statements.
Hmm. It's so much easier said than done. And I think this whole episode has just been like us sharing things that we're trying to do at the same time. Like I almost feel like this is us like talking, like giving advice to ourselves more than some of our
Yeah,
episodes. We're like we've mastered this and we're sharing it, but it's like
yeah,
I feel like this is one of those things that it's always just a process and there's ups and there's downs.
yeah. I think the other thing too, one of my friends the other day was like, "Oh, did you see my post on Instagram?" And I was like, "No." And then I like was thinking about it. I was like, I don't see anyone's posts on Instagram. Like, because when I'm on Instagram, 9 times out of 10, it's for work. So
Right.
I'm on there to post for DLL or to just keep up with whatever we need to. But like, I really don't. I think that too plays a big part of this because Instagram was like my toxic hole for
Mhm.
comparison.
Oh, that's
And
me.
I don't even hang out there anymore. I'm like, girl, bye. I don't need to be here. So I think just
Amazing.
identify where you're comparing yourself the most. And if you can get out of that environment, like get out. You don't have to delete your account. Like I still have my personal Instagram account. I just don't post on it as much
Yeah.
or look at it. Apparently.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the other thing is you're gonna get to a point in your life. This is general you, not like Skylar you, but you're going to get to a point in your life where you're just so grounded and happy with where you are that it literally doesn't matter. This is a really like this is a grass is greener situation.
Mhm.
You can look at your neighbor's lawn and be like, oh, their grass looks really green. And I actually wrote some poems about this, but it's like they could have spray painted that shit. It could be dead underneath, and they just manicured it to look good. Like you don't know what you're looking at when you're looking at someone, whether it's their life, what they drive, like you don't know if that's bought outright or a lease. Like it doesn't matter because you never get the full story. So don't compare your whole story, that is you, whether it's your body, mind, career, or anything, to a literal sentence in someone else's story. Mic drop.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say. Yeah, that sums up handling insecurity. Like I could, yep, that's it.
Favorites.
Yes. I've been very excited about this one and it's so silly, but it's been like a consistent favorite for maybe even a couple weeks now. But I have been obsessed with curating emoji combos, which like sounds so stupid, but it's been giving me joy. And even Sadie and I have a shared note where we've been like collecting like, oh, this one would be fun. And I just keep it got to the point where it was like 12:30 in the morning and I'm sitting there and Nick's and I was like, wow, I have a really bad headache. And Nick's like, you've been staring at these tiny little icons for hours. Like, put it away. I was like, but it's so fun. And it's like I'm using my phone, but I'm not on social media. Like I'm not, I was like, this is
Yeah.
great. I'm being creative. I'm finding combinations. And but I like how they look together. It's cute and it's just, I don't know, it's a fun little creative outlet. But that's my favorite of the week is my
I
emoji
love
combo.
that. So mine is kind of a 2 for 1. Big booty mixes. They sprinkle something addictive in there. I love it. I refuse to listen to anything else until Taylor Swift drops Speak Now, Taylor's version. And our living room renovation, because since the day we laid eyes on this house, I was ready to rip that wallpaper down. So I'm very excited. The wallpaper's gone and 3 coats of primer is on, which is amazing. And then by the end of the week, we will have it painted and a full renovation tour will be given to you.
You have to follow Susan on TikTok to see like the transformation of this. I was amazed by how big of a difference it's already made with just the primer. Like I night and day the way this house it looks incredible. Absolutely incredible.
It looks huge. Like I opened my bedroom door because our bedroom faces down like the hall. And I opened my bedroom door this morning. I was like, holy shit. Like our living room looks massive and I can only see like a fourth of it from here.
It was
It's
already such a big space and now it's like the way the French door is like the light is just flowing. Oh, it's so beautiful. I'm so excited to see the
it,
final result.
I need to choose the color today so I can pick up the paint tomorrow.
That's
So that's what we're doing today. What is your favorite quote or mantra?
So I didn't really have one. And then I was listening to my friend Anna Kate's voice memo this morning, and she started her memo by saying she was talking about like being upset about a situation, kind of not comparison at all, actually, but just like a situation between classmates. And then she was like, Skylar, karma may seem late, but it's always on time. It's like, I love it. Like it's so sassy, but it's also so true. And it's like just this lesson of like if someone does something that you know is wrong and like it doesn't seem like they got caught or like that they got what they deserved, just sit back because karma's going to take care of it. And if it seems like it didn't happen, it's not time yet. Like it will come when it's time. And I feel like that can be looked at with karma or with gratitude and like luck and whatever, like both sides of that you can look at it, but just sit back. It's gonna come when it's time. But I love that, such a sassy way to start the morning. It's like, all right,
That is so
for it.
good. If we want to get copyrighted, I would put Taylor's
I know.
karma right.
It's been in my head all day because of it. Yep.
That's now stuck in my head. My quote of the week was to do, live in the moment. And this is because I was gonna not go to work today. And then I was like, no, it's Monday. Like, I need to go and just get set up for the week because that's who I am. However, I am gonna take Wednesday off. Or yeah, Wednesday, which is the day this comes out. Because I was like, I want to hoard my PTO, as one does. But then I was like, dude, like, just enjoy yourself. Like, My whole thing is about living in the moment. And if I'm hoarding my time off, which is my time, I have earned it, then I'm not doing that. So my to do is to put in to get Wednesday off. And I feel really good about that decision.
I love that. I think I kind of talked about this with you on Friday too. It was like, look, if I can take a morning off and I'm able to get what I need to get done in the afternoon
Yes.
and go live in the moment and like experience something amazing, like I'm gonna do it and not feel bad about it. And I think that's similar to what you're talking about. But I love that. I'm so glad you're doing that.
Yes. I'm very excited. So you guys know the drill. Like and subscribe, and you can shop our templates on Etsy. We have a 20 prompt journal. Actually, it is. It's a 20 prompt journal, and we have an anxiety tracker that we both use every single day.
Every single day. Thank you for watching.